Okay, so you've got some negative product reviews and you're worried about the impact that's going to have on your product's performance and you just want to get them removed. Well, if that sounds like you, then you've come to the right place, because in this video, I'm going to show you the exact step-by-step process to getting both negative seller feedback and negative product reviews removed quickly. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Okay guys, so the first thing to understand is that there's actually two different types of reviews that customers can leave you as a seller. And we need to talk about the differences between these two types of reviews, what customers can and can't do in them, because this is essential knowledge to be able to understand how you can actually go about getting the negative ones removed. So the first type of reviews that customers can leave you are actually reviews of you as a seller, and this is called seller feedback. Now, seller feedback is reviews that customers leave you as a seller, and this is to review you on things like your dispatch speed, your delivery speed, the type of materials you use for your delivery, whether it's plastic materials or more eco paper materials, and things like that. And seller feedback is mainly designed for fulfilled by merchant sellers. Doesn't really mean much to FBA sellers, but even as an FBA seller, you still get seller feedback. Now, what customers are not allowed to do in the seller feedback section, and this is really important, they're not allowed to mention or base their feedback on anything to do with your product. This is just to do with you as a seller, and we'll come back to this a bit later on. So let's jump into the computer and I'll show you what this seller feedback looks like. So if you come onto a product listing and you look over to the right hand side, you'll be able to click into the seller store just by clicking on the sold by here. And this will show you all of the feedback this seller's received in the last 12 months, or we can click to lifetime. And this is what the seller feedback looks like. And you can flick through this and have a look at all of the feedback this seller's had over the certain time period. Now, the reality is that very, very few buyers or customers actually look at this seller feedback. It's really not that important. It's not like eBay where people take it into consideration before they actually buy a product. So if you're getting negative feedback, it's not really the end of the world, but obviously you still want to get that removed if you can, even if it's just for the case of having pride in your business. So I'll talk about exactly how to remove negative seller feedback a little bit later on in the video. Okay, so now let's talk about this second type of reviews that customers can leave, which are product reviews. And obviously in the name, this is where customers can actually leave reviews about your product, about the quality and the performance of your product. Now, regardless of whether you're an FBA seller or a fulfilled by merchant seller, a really important thing to understand is that sellers are not allowed to mention anything to do with fulfillment or customer service in these product reviews. And again, we'll come back to this a little bit later in the video. Now, product reviews are far more important than seller feedback. They have much more impact on your click-through rate and conversion rate. And the reason for that is because they actually show up on the product listing. So if we look at the product listing and we click on this ratings section here, you can see that you can actually see these product reviews on the product listing, and they actually contribute to the star factor of the product here. And as a result, they have a massive impact on both click-through rate and conversion rate. So you need to keep on track of your product reviews. And if you do get negative product reviews, you really want to do everything you can to try and remove them. Okay, so now that we've talked about the difference between seller feedback and customer reviews, let's talk about how to remove the negative ones. Now, a really, really important thing to mention, it's so important, before you try and remove any reviews, there's one thing you never ever want to do, and that is to contact a customer and ask them to change their feedback or change a review. If you do that and Amazon catches you, it's game over, your account will be suspended and no one's going to be happy. So make sure you do not do that. So the only way that you can actually get negative seller feedback removed is if the customer breaks one of Amazon's rules. And there's really two main rules, or two things that you want to be looking out for. So the first thing is if the customer mentions anything about the product. Now remember, I mentioned this earlier. So if the customer mentions in the review or bases their seller feedback on anything to do with your product, then you can actually ask Amazon to get that seller feedback removed, because it breaks Amazon rules. The second thing that you need to be looking out for, and this is only if you're an FBA seller, but if the customer mentions anything to do with fulfillment or customer service. So for example, I've had loads of negative seller feedbacks where the customer says, oh, the product didn't arrive, it arrived late, it arrived damaged, or anything like that. Because you're an FBA seller, that's not your fault, that's Amazon's fault. They're responsible for the delivery and customer service. So if the customer mentions anything to do with that in their seller feedback, again, you can get Amazon to remove it, and it's really quick and easy. So if we jump into the computer, I'll show you exactly how. Okay, so you want to log into Seller Central, then come down to the menu drop down. You want to come down to performance. and then over to feedback. Once you click into feedback, it will take you to a page that looks like this. If you scroll down the page, you'll be able to see all of your seller feedback with the actual comments that customers have left. Now, what you can do in the top left here is you can actually filter for only negative seller feedback. So you want to do that. And then what you want to do is just read through this comment section. So you want to read through those comment sections and you want to see, number one, does the customer mention anything to do with fulfillment or customer service? Number two, does the customer mention anything to do with the product? If they do, then what you want to do is click on this action drop down section here. Now, as you can see, I only have the option to contact customer. That's because I've already removed these negative seller feedbacks. So I'm going to go back to one of my positive seller feedbacks and show you what the option would look like if you hadn't already removed this negative seller feedback. Now, if you haven't already removed the negative seller feedback, when you click on the drop down, you'll be able to see this option here that just says request removal. You want to click that button. Once you click that button, this box here will appear, and this is just Amazon asking you to confirm that the seller feedback definitely breaks one of their 4 rules. Now, 2 of these rules we've already talked about, and this is if the feedback includes anything to do with the product or anything to do with fulfillment or customer service. There are also 2 other rules that can be broken. The first is if the feedback includes any obscene language, and the second is if it includes any personal identifiable information about you as the seller. So if the feedback breaks any of these 4 rules, you can actually click that button and then just confirm by pressing the yes here. What Amazon will do is then they will review that seller feedback and they'll make a decision in about 24 hours. Now, if it breaks any of the first 3 rules, so obscene language, any seller identifiable information or anything about product, Amazon will completely remove that feedback. If the feedback has anything to do with fulfillment or customer service, Amazon actually won't remove that feedback, but they'll strike it through and they'll just put something underneath that says Amazon takes responsibility for this. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so going back to our example of a laptop stand, you can see that one of the feedbacks the seller got was package was delayed, then never came. And obviously they have asked Amazon to remove the seller feedback. Amazon have striked it through, and then they add a little message saying Amazon takes responsibility for this fulfillment related experience. What then also happens is that this low star rating actually does no longer contribute to your overall seller star rating. Okay, so now that we've talked about how to remove negative seller feedback, let's talk about how to remove the dreaded negative product reviews. So there's really 2 methods that you can use to remove negative seller reviews. The first method anybody can use regardless of whether you're enrolled in Amazon's brand registry or not. However, the second method is exclusively for brands enrolled in Amazon's brand registry. So let's start off by talking about method number 1, and then we'll talk about method number 2. So method number 1 is to check if any of your negative product reviews break any of Amazon's community guidelines. So Amazon has a set of guidelines for what customers can and can't do in product reviews. And there's 6 main things they're not allowed to do that you need to check for, because if the customer has done any one of these 6 things, you can request that Amazon actually removes this negative review, and most of the time they actually will. So this is an awesome method. So let's talk about what these 6 things are. So the first one is if customers mention anything to do with fulfillment in their product review. Obviously, as mentioned earlier, product reviews are for reviewing the product and they are not there to review anything to do with fulfillment. So regardless of whether you're an FBA seller or a fulfilled by merchant seller, this is one of the things that customers are not allowed to mention in their product reviews. Number 2 is a customer is not allowed to talk about alternative products or competitors. So if a review says, I didn't like this product, I've used another one, and they enter their brand name and they say this other one was better, then that is another thing they are not allowed to do in their product reviews. The third rule is that competitors are not allowed to leave you reviews. So as a seller, you're not allowed to leave reviews on your own product, obviously, because they're biased. And again, you're not allowed to leave reviews on your competitors' products because obviously you're going to be biased leaving a negative review. Now, this is one that is quite hard to prove, but if you think that your competitors are targeting you with negative reviews, this is another ground to have that review removed. The fourth rule is that reviews are not allowed to include any personally identifiable information about you as a seller. And this was exactly the same for seller feedback. So if a customer leaves a review, a negative review, and they mention anything to do about your name, address, phone number, anything like that, again, you can ask Amazon to remove that review. The fifth thing that customers are not allowed to do in the reviews, and this one actually really surprised me when I first heard about it, but customers are not allowed to mention or base their reviews based on price. So this can be standalone price or even comparison. So if a customer says, I didn't like this product because I thought it was too expensive, or I didn't like this product because I found another product that's similar that was cheaper, anything like that that mentions price, whether it be standalone price or a comparison to another product, is a ground to actually have that review removed. The sixth and final rule, and to be honest, this one's kind of an obvious one, but customers are not allowed to bully a seller or use any offensive language in their reviews. Now, it's kind of hard to know or, put a rule on what counts as offensive language, but a general rule of thumb is that if a customer uses a swear word anywhere throughout their review, again, that's breaking a rule and you can get Amazon to remove that review. Okay, so you want to go through all of your negative product reviews, see if any of them are breaking one of those 6 rules, and if they are, then you just need to do a 2-step process to get that review removed. So let's jump into the computer and I'll show you. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is come over to your product listing and then go down to the review section, and you want to find the negative review that breaks one of these rules. Once you've found that review, step number 1 is to click this report abuse button right here. This is going to send over a report to Amazon saying that someone has highlighted this review as being abusive or breaking one of their rules. Now, the reality is that Amazon's not actually going to remove that review unless a lot of people press that report abuser button, but it's just something to do, and that's just step number 1. So after you've completed step number 1, step number 2 is to email the specific team in Amazon that deals with this review removal. So you want to email community-help@amazon.co.uk or amazon.com, depending on whether you're in the UK or the US. I would also email a second email address, which is reviews with an S at the end, -help@amazon.com or .co.uk. So email both those 2 email addresses. And what you want to do is you firstly want to include a link to the review. And if you don't know how to do that, let me show you. So to get the link to a review, all you need to do is click on the title of the review, which is this section here. You will then be taken to the specific review page. Just highlight this URL and include it in the email. So you want to include the link to the review, then an explanation of why you think the review is breaking Amazon guidelines and why you think it should be removed. And then also specifically quote the exact guideline that you think this is breaking. This is going to make your case really black and white and much more easy for Amazon to make a decision in your favor. What you'll normally find is that they'll make a decision within 24 hours, and regardless of whether they remove the review or not, they'll still get back to you with a response, so you can find out exactly what the outcome is. Now, I don't know if you can hear that, but a massive storm's just started outside, so I'm sorry if you can hear rain or thunder or anything like that in the background. Now, okay, so that is method 1. Now, what happens though if you want to remove a negative review, but it doesn't break any of those 6 Amazon community guidelines that I mentioned, or let's say it does, but Amazon just doesn't agree with you, you send off the email and they just don't remove it? Well, there is actually a second method that you can use. Unfortunately, you can only use the second method if you're enrolled in Amazon's brand registry, but if you are, let me show you exactly how to do this second method. So Amazon recently released a new tool inside Seller Central for brand owners called customer reviews. And what you can do is you can jump into this tool and it's going to show you all of the product reviews you've received over the last 3 months. So not ratings, but just written reviews. For any reviews that are 4 or 5 star, you can't do anything. You don't need to do anything. But for any neutral or negative reviews, so any 1, 2, or 3 star reviews, Amazon gives you 2 options. They allow you to, number 1, get in contact with the customer, ask them why they left you a negative review, and if they can give you any feedback as to what went wrong with the product, and you can use that feedback to improve your product. And the second thing that they allow you to do, and this is what you want to be doing, and this is the most powerful part of this tool, they allow you to send the customer a full refund, and it automatically sends an apology email on your behalf. Now, previously, I would have always recommended not to do this because, again, like I said earlier in the video, you do not want to ask a customer to change their review. And Amazon used to see you as when you used to refund customers for leaving you a negative review, Amazon used to see this as you trying to manipulate them to change their review to a positive one or remove the negative review. But now you can actually do it. Amazon allows you to do it in a way that's terms of service compliant, which is awesome. So let me take you into the tool and show you how to do this. So once you log into Seller Central, you want to come down to the menu drop down and you want to come down to brands. Once you're in brands, you want to select customer reviews, and that will take you to a page that looks like this. So as you guys can see, over the last 3 months, I've received 87 written reviews. Now, obviously I don't want to be looking at any of my positive reviews, so you can come down to this star rating here and filter so the tool only shows you 1 and 2 star, maybe 3 star reviews if you want to also look at some of the neutral reviews. Then what you want to do is click on this contact customer button on the right hand side of the review, and you'll be given 2 options. Number 1, courtesy refund, or number 2, customer support. So I would not actually recommend reaching out to the customer because you need to be really careful about your wording and you can get in trouble with Amazon. So instead, just offer them a courtesy refund. So what will happen here is 2 things. Number 1, Amazon will refund the customer fully for their order. And then number 2, Amazon will send you a completely terms of service compliant email to the customer, basically saying, "Dear customer, we're really sorry that you had a bad experience with our product. We're really sorry to hear that." As a way of saying, sorry, we're offering you a full refund for your order. We hope that you consider us again. Have a great day. And the idea behind this is that essentially by refunding that customer, by apologizing, that customer might go ahead and remove their negative review, or they might actually increase it to a positive review. The reality is that this method doesn't have the highest success rate. However, if you sell a fairly cheap product, why not refund the customer? They were unhappy in the first place, just refund them. They might remove their review. And if they don't, it doesn't really matter. The only reason why you wouldn't want to use this method is if you sell a really expensive product and it's just too expensive to refund that customer, because there's only a small chance that they're going to remove their review anyway. Okay guys, so that is exactly how you go about removing both negative seller feedback and negative product reviews on Amazon. So I hope you found those methods useful. If you did, don't forget to give the video a like and make sure you're subscribed with that notification bell turned on so you never miss a video, and I will see you in the next one.